Matthew 5, verse 13 to 16, we read this passage, and it says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." I'm going to focus on two concepts from this passage. Firstly, Jesus uses salt and light to help us understand an aspect of our identity that we have as Christians. When he says that we are salt of the earth and that we are the light of the world, then that is what we are as Christians. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 17 says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new." And John 3:16 famously talks about us being born again. Friends, when we give our lives to Jesus and his Spirit comes and lives in us, there's a fundamental shift in our identity. A famous biblical example of this is Paul of Tarsus, who radically persecuted the church. But when he had an encounter with Jesus, he radically preached the gospel and ultimately gave his life for his faith. If there is any identity that we need to be loud and proud about, friends, it's our new identity that we have in Christ. Which brings us to our second point. Both salt and light have a profound effect on whatever they touch. Or in other words, it's hard not to notice food that has salt on it or a light that's been switched on in a dark room. Some quick facts about salt. Did you know there's over 14,000 uses for salt? Go and Google it. Not just chips, bro. It can preserve food. I'm sure we should know that. But salt can reduce eye puffiness. Salt can help your skin glow. Salt can also help milk stay fresh for longer. But most commonly, salt is used to enhance the flavor of food. Friends, Jesus has called us to impact our communities. He's called us to bring flavor into our communities. Jesus also says we are the light of the world. Interestingly, the first recorded words that God spoke was, "Let there be light." I grew up on a farm on the other side of Nelspruit. This farm was situated in the middle of nowhere on a mountain range overlooking the Komati Valley. And one of the many memories I have is that when there was no moon, this farm was like extremely dark. And at night we'd switch on the outside light and insects would come from everywhere and just swarm around these lights, thousands of them. And on these dark nights, I remember that the stars seemed ever brighter. And I spent a lot of time just looking at these bright stars, wondering how great and how awesome God is. My point being that light attracts attention, and the darker it is, the more intense that attraction is. And when our friends and colleagues or our family members are living in darkness or find themselves in tough times, they'll be drawn to the light that God has placed in us. So how are we supposed to be salt and light? One way is to be ready to share the gospel or our testimony when the time comes. Paul famously said in Romans 16 that he's not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power to save. The world needs the gospel, friends. Another way is to live out our faith in Jesus. When the conversation is about doom and gloom that we see in the media, we can challenge the narrative with positive sentiment based on our faith in Jesus. When our friends find themselves in the midst of disaster, we can provide hope, love, comfort, and encouragement. When morals and ethics are being challenged, we can stand our ground and show the world a better way. The last point I want to make about how salt and how we are supposed to be salt and light is get involved in the community. God can only bring his flavor and shine his light in our communities when his people are actually there for him to do so. If you are a parent, get involved in your child's school. If you like doing sport, join a club. If you have a gift to lead, find ways to become influential in your communities. I'll end with this. Jesus makes a statement that if salt loses its flavor, it is worthless or ineffective. In those days, salt would often be contaminated with impurities, which would render salt flavorless. Such salt would be thrown onto paths, and hence the comment about flavorless salt being trodden on by men. He also says that nobody hides a lamp under a basket. Friends, we are living in a world that is becoming more confused, more lost, and more dark. The world is desperate for truth. Let's not lose our flavor. Let's not hide our light. Let's be salt and light.